The real question here with trade is good or bad for whom? Trade doesn't happen between countries. The assumption here is that America trades with China, and there's a trade deficit between America and China, which is good for one side and bad for the other side. But the fact is that countries don't trade. Individuals trade. When you go and you buy a made-in-China product, you are basically trading with somebody in China who made this, the company that made it. And like every trade, if it's entered into voluntarily, if it's entered into freely, who loses? Right? You're paying something for this product because you believe the product is worth more to you than what you're paying for it. The other party is accepting payment for it because they believe the payment you're providing is worth more to them than the product they're giving you. Both parties are winning. The essence of trade, the essence of voluntary trade is win-win.
The recent past has seen greater economic inequality in America than at any time since the Great Depression. In the 3 decades after World War II, American incomes grew quickly and equally. But starting in the late 1970s, things began to change. Today, 1% of Americans are taking home nearly 20% of the country's total income and own more than 35% of America's wealth. And it didn't happen by accident. It's the result of policy decisions on taxes, education, trade, labor, macroeconomics, and financial regulation, all of which shifted economic power away from low and moderate income American families. Economic inequality is real, it's personal, it's expensive, and it was created. Since the 1960s, tax rates on very high incomes have been slashed dramatically, starving public investments in schools and roads and everything else needed to build our economy, and providing ever greater incentives to rig the economy's rules to send more money to the top. The laws we've created to govern globalization have protected corporate interests but done nothing for American workers. Instead, we've allowed workers' rights to be systematically dismantled, both here and abroad. Policymakers also began using high unemployment, which hurts everybody but especially low and middle-wage workers, to protect the wealthy from any hint of inflation. And then corporate interests pushed to abandon safeguards preventing the financial sector from making risky bets, which had to be backstopped by American taxpayers when those bets went sour, a protection not given America's underwater homeowners. All of this created the worst economic crisis since the 1930s. And we did it by allowing those with the most economic power to set the rules of our economy. It's continuing today. By the end of 2012, American workers' share of the economic pie was the lowest in more than half a century, while the share going to corporate profits was the highest on record. This isn't sustainable. We can't have a prosperous economy without a large and growing middle class. None of this happened by accident. We allowed it to happen, but it can be fixed.
And yeah, the winner might be the other side of the transaction. You might be winning by buying that Chinese T-shirt. The winner on the other side of the transaction might live in China, but what difference does that make? You win, they win. To the extent you belong in quotes, that you are part of the U.S. economy, you won. So the U.S. economy is better off. So the whole discussion of trade deficits is wrong conceptually. There is no such thing. Think about it this way. You go to the grocery store and you buy stuff at the grocery store. You leave dollars at the grocery store and you get groceries. What's your trade deficit with the grocery store? It's huge. You know, you're giving up dollars and you're getting groceries. You know, you never get dollars from the grocery store. So there's a huge trade. Does that matter? No, you're better off because of the trade, because you get the groceries which you value more than your dollars. And the grocery store is better off because they have the dollars which are better off for them than the groceries. They've made a profit. You've made a profit. So trade fundamentally is between individuals or between businesses or between individuals and businesses. But businesses are just a conglomeration of individuals. And they are essentially, at least in intent, win-win situations. You go into the trade trying to better yourself, and the other party goes into trade trying to better themselves off. You sometimes make mistakes. You sometimes make errors, and it turns out that trade is bad for you, but that's not the intention of a trade. And again, it is irrelevant where the other party that you're trading with lives, and it's irrelevant for you, and it's irrelevant for the so-called economy, because all the economy is an aggregate of people like you. So we're all better off for buying stuff that is made in China because it's cheaper, which means that we have more money to spend on other stuff, to save, to invest, or to buy more T-shirts. We could have only bought one T-shirt. Now we're going to buy 2 T-shirts. We're better off because we have 2 instead of 1. So, and of course, the Chinese are better off because they have a profit off of the making of those T-shirts, which they can then save or invest or go out and consume. So it's win-win. Both parties are better off, and there's no such thing as good or bad for the economy, independent of good or bad for the individual, and trade is good.